And we're good to go. I will stop sharing. Perfect. And we're recording everybody.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Right, before I officially open the meeting, I'll ask Councillor Kelly Stratford to allocate.
Whakatake hauki te uru, whakatake hauki te tona, kia ngā kumikina ki ita, kia ngā taratara ki tai. E me akirana te ātakura, he tio he huka, he hau, tihei, maurora. And for those that haven't been at Paihia before, it sees the winds from the east, west, north, south. Let's have some good kōrero today and a good dose of weather.
Thank you very much. But first of all, this is an independent hearing panel. We've been appointed by the Paihia District Council. So on my right, we've got Councillor Kelly Stratford, who's the Deputy Mayor of the Paihia District Council. She's the accredited commissioner. And on my left, we've got Councillor Felicity Foy, who's the accredited commissioner. My name is Phil Smith. I'm an independent hearings commissioner. I don't work for the council. I just do this as a job for other areas. Our roles are to sit and hear the submissions to the district plan, and today we've got 6 topics, and then we make a recommendation to the council once we've heard that evidence. So the topics today are the airport, the hospital, Quail Ridge, Wahroonga Bay, Napa Innovation and Enterprise Park, and Moturoa Island, and they're all special purposes zones. For the hearing, we've read all the submissions on those different zones. We have copies of the submissions that have been sent in by experts, Mr. Smith and McGrath, and any other evidence that's been sent in from laypeople. The sections 42A reports, which you would have received if you were either hard copy or email, and they again are taken as read, and all they are is a recommendation to us. We can change that report, we have to base it on what evidence we hear, of course. So just simply a recommendation to us, and things can change in that report. And the other thing is the officers, once they hear evidence from submitters, they then have the response, and they may change their mind as well. So that's sort of it's a flow. Regarding the hearing, we are the only ones who can ask questions. Nobody else can ask questions. Sometimes in the hearing, if you want to get things sorted out or somebody raises things, we might ask a question on their behalf, but we don't have to, but there's no cross-examination. Housekeeping, the toilets are out there, past the reception desk on the right-hand side. If there's a fire, go out that way and we
assemble over here, although they will actually come and collect us once they've confirmed that it is an actual fire.
Right. And we have designated lunch breaks and morning tea, but I sometimes forget about the time, so if somebody can remind me on and let it go, that'd be good. If you've got a cell phone, please switch it off or put it on silent. And that's about it, I think. What we'll do now is we'll get the staff to do reporting on their documents. So who's going to go first?
Me.
You, Jerome, Mr. White.
And sorry, I will just quickly say we are also recording, and the sound should pick up everything in the room, so do just be aware of what you are saying, and this will go online on our website later.
Just so are you on the Excel?
Yes.
You're not checked. Once we finish with the officers, you're scheduled to be here at 9:45. But if we get finished earlier, we'll start earlier with you. Just so you know that you.
Yep, sure. I'm going to chair and commissioners. My name is Jerome White. I'm the technical director of planning at SLR Consulting based in Tonga, and the reporting officer for the airport, hospital, and Napa Special Purpose Zone products. So I'll just be doing a brief presentation on some of the key issues raised in submissions, my recommendations, and some of the outstanding issues. In broad terms, these are 3 relatively discrete and non-controversial topics for the EDP. They're 3 new purpose zones from the operative district plans, the hospital and airport special purpose zones intended to effective national planning standards, which anticipate special purpose zoning to enable airport and hospital activities to be undertaken effectively and efficiently. And the NAPA special purpose zone is a bespoke sort of special purpose zone which was found to meet the criteria in the national planning standards around special purpose zones and district plan. So in terms of the airport special purpose zone, it covers 3 sites in the district as shown below, shown on the slide, sorry. So the Bay of Islands Airport, the Paihia Airport and the Paihia Aerodrome. As I mentioned, relatively non-controversial topic, 17 original submissions, 2 further submissions, and most submitters were in support of the airport special purpose zone, either in full or part. The key submitter is Farm North Holdings Limited in relation to the airport protection surface layers, and other submitters include the New Zealand Agricultural Aviation Association, the fuel companies, Z Energy, and Z. And there are a range of other sort of general plan-wide submissions on this special purpose zone, and you'll see that's a common feature of the special purpose zones discussed today. In terms of the issues raised in submissions, as I said, general support for the intent of the special purpose zone to enable airport activities and ancillary activities. A request to remove agricultural aviation from the definition of general aviation activity, clarify one of the standards in relation to outdoor fuel storage tanks. Some submissions question the accuracy of the airport technical surface layers. Request to better effect, recognise effects on biodiversity in relation to the Bay of Islands Airport. And there's some general plan-wide submissions set common relief in relation to emergency services, facilities, critical infrastructure, and stormwater management. In terms of recommendations, notified provisions, relatively minor amendments. The minor amendment to the definition to remove agricultural aviation. A minor amendment to clarify that the outdoor storage standard doesn't apply to fuel tanks, and a minor amendment to one of the policies to the environment that is alongside the there hasn't been any pre-circulated evidence on this topic. As far as I'm aware, no key issues outstanding.
Well, before you move on, I quite often interrupt the people more, unfortunately. So I read your section 42 of the year report in paragraph 96. You refer it's regarding the airport protection services plan. So I take it you received no evidence from Carl Foley.
No, and they did provide confirmation that they weren't attending that hearing, so I might take from that. Yeah, they were going to get an engineer to review the accuracy of the airport protection service layers.
Right.
So my take is that they've done that, and by not attending the hearings, they've been evidence that
Okay.
Sorry. So moving on, the next special purpose zone is the hospital special purpose zone, again covering 3 sites in the district, Bay of Islands Hospital, Paihia Hospital, and Yoga Health, Brownie Hospital, shown here on the site. So for relatively small number of submissions received, 9 original submissions, 6 further submissions, with zoning. Key submitter who you get on today is the buffer order, generally supportive of the intent of the zone, but request a number of amendments. NATA order and NATA any specific with specific relief. And again, some general plan-wide submissions on the BDP allocated this special purpose zone. In terms of the key issues raised, it's generally around pregnancy and definitions around hospital and hospital-related activities, which is actually a mission and notified regional plan, enabling a wider range of ancillary activities to the hospital, increasing the scale of development permitted through the special purpose zone provisions, and again some general submissions seeking common relief in relation to the accommodation, emergency services, relocatable buildings. So in terms of the key recommendations, is the introduction of a definition of hospital and hospital-related activity, which I see was in a mission notified version. some amendments to some of the building location standards around maximum height of buildings, and setbacks to better enable development within the special purpose zone. Some key, in terms of the key matters in contention, this is taken from Butler's evidence, is in relation to hospital-related activities, seeking more enabling provisions and a wider range of activities within that definition. Also the heights in relation to boundary, outstanding seeking more permissive standard care, and supported residential care to be a permitted activity, discretionary activity. Obviously, I've considered that evidence and we can respond to that in the reply session this afternoon.
Before you go on again, I mean, this is only an opportunity where we have to ask you questions, isn't it? Because once the applicant, the submitters give their evidence, then you do the response. So,
I'm taking your hands in terms of
right,
that.
okay. Well, on the help, I mean, regarding the two recommendations you've got in paragraph 85 and 90, regarding the hospital definition and also the hospital-related activities, is there any reason, I mean, we've accepted, or you've accepted and recommended that we accept the definition that's on the Ray District plan, but you haven't fully accepted the recommendation regarding the activities that is in the Ray District plan. And my feeling out loud, and I'll change over time, wouldn't it be sensible that it's the same local health board that would have the same definition?
It's Pomeray.
Yeah, it's all the Northern District Health Board, isn't
Yeah. I'm certainly willing to move on some of those activities, including the definition. But I think it's the scale of Pomeray Hospital is quite
Yeah,
the scale
yeah,
of hospital we talk about in the district, which is some of the reasons we sort of slightly different definition may be appropriate.
it? Okay. Just so
But certainly agree consistency.
yeah, what I did, I actually went through the definition from Pomeray and saw what they've got and what you've got in your report.
Yeah.
Okay, have a look. Have you got any questions, Colin?
I've got one question pertaining to the Paihia Hospital. Locally, that's a really high congestion area for parking because it's not just the hospital activity, but all of the other activities within the vicinity. And in terms of increasing the scale of development being permitted, that there seems to be a concern for that locality in particular, not just for visitor parking, but for staff parking as well. And I'm not sure how that would be addressed, but I know that is a concern in particular for Paihia. If anyone did a site visit at any time, they particularly 9 a.m. When everybody's doing school drop-off, which is on the same street there, they would see that concern. So I just wanted to highlight that in terms of
This is something I haven't specifically considered, but obviously give consideration and listen around, maybe able to talk to the development plans and how they might accommodate additional parking as part of it.
Can you help me understand why the hospital-related activity, why there was pushback?
I guess so one, for example, commercial activities was one requested there, which is a very broad term in terms of how it's defined in the PEP. And I guess based on the additional consideration of the evidence, there is that sort of clause which makes there it is ancillary commercial activities, and I think it does provide some comfort that what's going to take place within the zone is compatible with the overall hospital activities. So, without going into my reply now, I guess I'm willing to accommodate some of those additional sort of activities.
Once you hear the evidence.
Yeah. I think that I'll have more questions after.
Okay, that's right. Carry on.
Okay, so next special purpose zone is a Napa special purpose zone, located in close proximity to Paihia, Napa. 31 original submissions received, 30 further submissions, again largely in support of the intent of the special purpose zone provisions. Key submitters holdings that we get on today, landowner site. Also submissions from certain issues around development of the site. Again, some new plan-wide submissions. And this is the following. So key issues raising submissions, it's the second main split of in front of holding limited. Cumulative seeking to enable a broad range of activities within the zone and providing flexibility for development activities within the zone. Some clarification of terms, request to ensure development within the zone involving engagement with planning scheme and consideration of cultural impact assessment from the Paihia. Again, general submissions. Emergency service facilities, capable buildings, in terms of the recommendations on our report, and again, it's an objective to recognise and regulate employment opportunities, clarify some of the activities provided within the zone in terms of the scope of educational facilities, employment, and a reference to the key policy and the underpinning chapter to make sure those considerations are taken into account. There's been duplication of some of the rules related to building and structures. We moved a couple of those, key one being rule 1 and rule 8, which is now controlled activity rules and building structures within the zone, which requires a minimum sort of certainty that the speed gets the buildings to be managed and controlled by the site from council. And there's some missing discretion related to stormwater management, so we'll be considering those. In terms of the key issues still remaining in contention, which will be on today's final polling, is really around sort of we see and see some additional activities in the zoning, including childcare facilities, accommodation for on-site staff, and visiting staff, and education facilities not provided for entirely. We also requested amendments in one of the policies that is reference to the review of undertaken by another company. And additional sort of changes to some of the rules just to give them enabling of retail, moving some ground floor area restrictions, and being more enabling for all the food outlets around the zone. Any questions on
Just going back to the to rule 1 and rule 8, the
buildings and structures?
primary buildings and accessory buildings. Do you think that there were separate rules because of the surrounding land uses that were already, existing surrounding land uses?
That's not my understanding. I tried to look back through the section 32 and some of the early iterations of original, and it seems to be a bit of an oversight, or it just didn't seem to make sense why there was this different rules for accessory buildings to sort of new one generally controlling to the rules of building, which is what part of the policy is the original requested. So I think Breed's understanding the rationale for that.
And with the rolling it into one and making it controlled, or will that increase the costs for development on those sites?
Well, potentially controlled activity seems to require limited activity, not require consent, but I think it's important as it enables some kind of control over location and type of buildings that can occur in the zone, which is part of the problems sort of wasted. So while there be a cost, I don't see it as significant in the overall scheme of the zone and the type of activities that we established there.
And you're waiting to hear the evidence on that controversial one, the retail versus rural production. Increasing their request to increase the general business.
Sorry, retail.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like we sort of Like started here, they requested something over here and people were coming to it in the middle. And so
Okay,
soon
right.
you're hearing from you that what they requested for reasons and something else. See that.
And there is some pushback on childcare facilities.
Yeah, yeah, I have given good consideration for that issue, based on even kind of holding up that I do sort of understand the need for it. Now, I don't really see the risk of proliferation of these activities appearing on its own. You know, the fact that, the facilities and quite valuable, maybe, this helps the name of businesses established here.
Can you just speak up a bit if you can, because it's listening? Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, provision for childcare facilities, I think is appropriate based on further consideration of the evidence.
How will the proposed district plan ensure that there's safe, healthy, and supportive environment for the childcare centre while maintaining primary production activities like potential spraying?
Good question. I mean, there's not, where I envisage those childcare facilities established being that sort of innovation precinct, which is sort of in the seasonal developed area, you haven't got primary production passing on to those areas. So the risk of spray, etc., is probably quite low.
Can you put a limit on it?
You could put a limit on it, on the number.
One?
Yeah.
One childcare facility? Possible? Yeah. Okay.
That's
Well, that would be,
Mr. Smith.
but I think some of those responses they were not, particularly the feedback that brings sensitive and also talking on might be from Smith.
Okay. In regards to your section 42A report, 113, and I don't know whether you're going to be able to answer it or whether it's Mr. Smith, but there's reference to Nati Rangi Tinapa, which to me that indicates two different organisations, and from the members there was a cultural impact assessment done, sorting out a memorandum of understanding. Are those two entities the same, or do you not know?
I can't talk to the specifics. Those are two separate submission points that are allocated to different submitters. I understand obviously got common interests.
Right.
I don't know how they operate.
Well, maybe Mr. Smith can answer that, because, and the other question I've got, thinking about, I think Barlow Thorns recommended a condition referring to the MOU. Is that a common thing that would be put in the district plans?
Yeah, my view is no. I think it's a relationship between farm holding and the iwi. And for them having that arrangement and environment that way they do that instead outside of the district and reference to that sort of key tongues being on policy doesn't prevent anyone from having an MOU in a particular area and taking good engagement in the launch of that.
Anything else? I suppose Mr. Smith will advise us whether the MOU is being finished and finalised or
So there were two additional visions as well from with a couple of other commissions. How do you see the additional clause cross-reference, TW policy 6, and how that's different to your suggested wording? So that's the cross-reference between your chapter and
So that reference to that policy in the tongues being what chapter is a sort of common clause that's included in the sort of considered policy at the end of most of the zoning provisions. So sort of that was a bit of a gap in what was notified. So that would be one way of ensuring consistency. It's one means ensuring you don't have all the depending on considerations, really in the zone chapters. It's best to sort of cross reference back to that chapter consistency. efficiency reasons. So yes, in my view would be that's the most appropriate way of sort of ensuring that there is sort of consistent and appropriate consideration of things in what issues and values.
And just to highlight, these may be potential questions to the consultant and for FNHL. So it may be and there that come up.
And nothing else. That's you. You know, we go to you.
Peter Baxter, I'm a policy planner at Paihia District Council, and I was the 42A report provider for Quail Ridge, North Roa Island, and Oronga Bay special purpose zone. So, yeah, that's the location of Quail Ridge, which is a country club development on the north side of Kiriki. So we had 9 original submissions with 14 individual submission points, and 8 further submissions with 11 individual submission points. 7 original submission points indicated support in part to oppose the provisions. Submissions came from interest or advocacy groups, organisations, community members, government organisations, and utility operators. So the key issues raised in submissions was a request to delete a rule that restricts domestic pets, and general plan-wide submissions relating to emergency service facilities, critical infrastructure, relocated buildings and management of chemical services. Key recommendations was the inclusion of an additional matter of control in the impermeable surface coverage rule to ensure adverse effects of stormwater runoff on adjacent and downstream properties are assessed. And outstanding issues, there's no pre-circulated evidence received on this topic. The submitter is concerned about dog bans and restrictions in the zone, and the submitter is opposing various solutions. Any questions about that one?
So I understand Quail Ridge was developed as a plan change, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know whether at that time the plan change put those restrictions with the domestic pets it refers to, it might be referred to violent dogs, it refers to domestic pets, isn't it?
Yeah. My understanding it was part of that initial planning change that required a pet policy from Quail Ridge.
Right. And that was put forward by Quail Ridge. Do you know or not? If you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, I think it was, some of the submitters and some of, not too sure.
Right, okay. It might have been because of the dog reserve next door, I suppose. So even if we deleted it from here, Quail Ridge could still have their own restrictions, couldn't we? Yeah.
I just had a question about the effectiveness of the plan. Councils are required to monitor the effectiveness of the plan, and what feedback have you had about the wording or the implementation of this restriction on cats, dogs in the subdivision? And do you think that it's working effectively, or could there be a change to wording to reflect the concerns of the submitter?
I haven't had much feedback on the current wording apart from this, what the submitters raised. So, yeah.
It might be worth, when you come to do your replies, to have a look at the original plan change, whether that was a result of submissions to the plan change. I know there's a dog reserve, so whether they put in submission there. But the way I read the Quail Ridge thing, it refers to domestic pets. It doesn't refer just to dogs. The only reference to dogs, I think, is in relation to not having signs not to take the dogs onto that beautiful walkway. That's the way I read it. But I'd be interested to see if we can find out why they got put on in the first place.
Sure. Yes.
You don't have to do it today, but it maybe you have to do it right, yeah, don't do it today. All right, anything else?
So the next one is the Rotorua Island, which is an island in on the western side of the Bay of Islands. So, there's 6 original submissions with 9 individual submission points, 2 further submissions with 2 individual submission points, 4 original submission points indicated general support, 3 submission points indicated support in part, and submission points opposed to provisions. Submissions came from interest or advocacy groups or organisations, community members, government organisations, and substructures. Key issues raised in submissions, support for Rotorua Island provisions, request to clarify the types of farming permitted in this zone, general plan-wide submissions relating to emergency service facilities, relocatable buildings, and critical infrastructure. Key recommendations was amendment to the farming rule to clarify its intent that only certain types of farming on Rotorua Island are permitted. Amendment to the description of the new buildings and structures rule to clarify relocated buildings are included. There's no pre-circulated minutes has been received from this. So,
Before you go on, any questions? I've just got a question. If you look at the 42A report, Appendix 1, in front of you, on the introduction, the overview, when you get there, let me know. The last paragraph in the overview, the last sentence reads, this includes the understanding that subdivision will not be undertaken on Rotorua Island. That's what it reads. Then when I go over to MIZ policy 7, it says manage land use and subdivision. Now, are they not contradicting each other, or has it always been there like that? You know?
yeah, that sounds contradicting each other.
It's sort of general terminology that's used throughout the PUP, which refers to land use and subdivision, so I would imagine that's the reason we're there rather than being
It's just,
It changed.
pardon? Yeah. It just seems to me wrong that you say this includes understand that subdivision will not be undertaken, and we're P7 manage land use and subdivision anyway, but if you can provide some comment on that.
Sure.
Thank you. I know there's no submission on it, but it just seems to conflict to me. Thank you. Thank you.
To the Oroma Bay zone. So there's 10 original submissions with 51 individual submission points, 9 further submissions with 15 individual submission points, 37 original submission points indicated general support, 6 submission points indicated support in part, and 3 submission points opposed to provisions. Submissions came from interest or advocacy groups, organisations, community members, government organisations, and utility operators. So key issues raised in submissions include support for the provisions, request for a new rule that specifically excludes storage of relocated buildings, being a permitted activity, request to delete the building coverage rule, general plan-wide submissions relating to emergency service facilities, critical infrastructure, relocatable buildings, coverage, and the management of services. Some key recommendations was inclusion of a new permitted activity rule for emergency service facilities, delete the maximum footprint of single buildings or structures standard, amendment to the description of the new buildings and structures rule to clarify relocated buildings are included, and there's outstanding issues of the necessity of wording amendments, scope for policy recommendation, topographical area clarification, clarification regarding this.
If I go to, I haven't got a page, but your appendix, your 42 area report, appendix 1, and I go along to OBZ rule 14, that comprehensive development plan, that completed, I haven't used it yet, have I?
They haven't done
Yeah,
it. They have done for their existing stuff.
for that. So is there a plan to go into there or no?
No.
Okay. And when I look on G, item G, it refers to a LA4 landscape assessment report from 1995. Is that still applicable 30 years later? I'm just asking the question. Do you know? I mean,
Where is that?
it's under OBZR14, doesn't have a page number. And item G, it's RD1, and it goes all the way, and you've got matters of discretion or restricted to, and then it's item. I imagine in 30 years, vegetation has probably changed significantly, but I don't know. Have you got it?
Yeah. It must just, maybe it's like a general landscape assessment, but yeah, I'll have to look into it.
Well, it's 30 years old, it's just, I'm asking the question, is it still relevant, or should when, you should have to do an updated one, I don't know. Pardon?
Is it right if I speak?
Oh, yes, of course it is, yeah, we're here to get answers if we can.
So you're referring to the LA4 landscape assessment report, is that it was recently 30 years old, 1995?
Yeah.
I can advise that council has not updated those reports, nor is there any intentions and time of to review reports.
Right.
So that is the information that we still do have.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nothing else you want to raise before we move on?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right, now we've got the Bay of Island Watchdogs, Leonie XL. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Right, just launch into it.
Whatever you want to say, yeah, we're here to hear you. So you're speaking, my understanding is the way I read the report, is possibly speaking to Quail Ridge and
And then after.
Napa. Oh, I
Yes,
couldn't see, when I read the report, I couldn't see much of the Napa, but.
sure. I'll talk to that because it's, I don't know either is the short point there, but, it's predominantly about, Quail Ridge, not Quality Ridge, which seems to have, seems to have corrected my spelling in the submission. Good morning and thanks for hearing us. The Bay of Islands Watchdogs is a group of 1,800 people who are involved in a Facebook page. We're a lobby group relating to dog welfare, dog pounds, things to do with dogs, and one of our key concerns is in relation to FNDC is the policies and practices around subdivisions and the policy of banning dogs in areas of high density Kiwi and some other areas, or restricting the number of dogs someone can have with sometimes with grandfather clauses. We think that that is an over-regulation of responsible dog owners and think that there are alternatives which will protect wildlife and achieve those aims without disallowing responsible dog owners from owning a pet. This is the first time that we've submitted to a district plan, so excuse me if I bumbled through this a little bit. And in some ways, talking about these specific instances is putting the cart before the horse, because will be speaking on the natural environment in August this year and then subdivision next year. And those are the key issues for us, and these are sort of subsets of that key issue. One of the things I've given AK, has everybody got the,
We've got the thing.
fantastic, we've got the Quail Ridge policy, okay, cool. So what I'd like to do, the two clauses that I'm interested in are Quail Ridge QRR9 and Ngāwha Innovation Enterprise Park NIEPP3.
Quail Ridge, R9, yeah, domestic pets, yeah.
Sure, so there's,
One more, the one in Ngāwha?
and the Ngāwha one is NIEPP3.
Let me just get it first.
And I have a reasonable amount to say on Quail Ridge and about the generalities. So I'm going to talk generalities first, then talk Quail Ridge and to a far lesser extent NIEP, because it's really about not understanding what's going on there. Okay, so I think there are a number of other submissions from people, individuals from the Bay of Islands Watchdogs, which might have come under, because they were the same as the generic one, that might have come under that heading. But the views that I'm expressing are very common amongst our group, which is largely responsible dog owners in the Northland district. You know, some from Auckland and so on, but predominantly from Northland. So I've just got about 14 general points, and then I'm going to speak about Quail Ridge. So, and each of these points leads to the other. And excuse me being quick, because it's about subdivision, and then this is a subset of that. So the first thing...
And I just asked you, the 14 general points, do you have them typed out?
I have, and I can get them to you afterwards. I'm sorry, it's pretty
If
scribbled.
you can email them to AK, that'd be great, and then we can have a read, so it saves us trying to write the whole lot.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, you don't need to write it down. I'll send it on.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first point is that the Dog Control Act 1996 is a key legislative document in Australia and New Zealand for the care and control of dogs, and that enables policies and bylaws for any particular council. And we have a policy and bylaw, dog management policy and bylaw 2018 with FNDC that we were involved in at the time. However, even though that's the key legislative document, the banning of dogs and the restricting of the number of dogs that somebody is allowed on a property through an FNDC occurs through a number of processes. One is conservation covenants, which I'm not going to address today, and the other is subdivision consents process. And we are told that that's been happening for around 25 years in different variations and is enabled by a number of documents, including a practice note and their internal documents rather than external documents. The other document that enables them is the DOC. The DOC's very supportive of FNDC's banning and restriction of dogs, and they've got this great big document on risk to native wildlife, along with which supports this map, which you all have, I think, somewhere, because we attached it to the submission, which is the Kiwi density in Northland, with various areas, including high density, Kiwi present, Kiwi corridors, and areas adjacent to those areas. And so the purple areas that you can see on the map that was attached are the ones that are high density, and they're the ones where the most stringent conditions are applied nowadays. There may be, and the other areas also have conditions, but they may not be as stringent as in high density heavy areas, right? So dog owners have tried to challenge the strictness of these policies in a number of ways, all of which have thus far been unsuccessful. One is through hearings. Was this you, Mr. Smith? There was a 2007 hearing with Commissioner William Smith, Ronaldson, Lynham, and the Mount Wakaka case.
That'll be me.
That'll be you. Okay, cool. All right, so that's one way that was challenged at that time and failed. This document, which is now updated, wasn't challenged on its merits at that time. That's something that we will be doing when we do the subdivision stuff. It's also been challenged by individuals who have tried to subdivide their own properties and been unable and been told, if you subdivide, you can't have a dog on your property or the new one, or you can have your dog till it dies, or a variation of those. You can have one dog, two dogs, whatever. I should say clearly we are not opposed to restrictions from FNDC that say things like you have to fence your property, you have to keep your dog in between dusk and dawn, which is good for Kiwi. We're concerned about anything that suggests avoidance training that uses a shock collar because they've been banned quite widely.
It's a Kiwi aversion training.
Kiwi aversion training with
Is
an
that-
electric
is that-
collar.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it has an electric collar and they, you know, you go, when a dog goes near a Kiwi, they get zapped and there's all sorts of problems if there's many. The research on that is equivocal and the electric shock collars have been banned overseas. But there are ways that you can be a responsible dog owner living in areas where there are lots of Kiwi, and we have many members who do that in places where Kiwi are wandering around in their backyard and eating dog food off the back veranda. So there are ways, in our view, that dogs and native wildlife can coexist. They aren't mutually exclusive, and to treat them so is unreasonable. We've been lobbying, the individuals, this is still happening all the time. You know, I'm constantly getting calls from people saying, oh my God, trying to subdivide to give a, you know, place to the kids or for us, and, you know, once our dog dies, we can't have one. It's a great stress to people, and particularly older people, who need their dogs, and it's particularly important to older people where their partners have died, and their dog is their key form of companionship and help. We've been challenging it in various ways, unsuccessfully with FNDC since 2017. We're still going, and this process with the district plan is one that we've been waiting for to challenge it. Okay, so the next point that I'd like to make is that dogs are intrinsic to physical and mental well-being. Now that research shows that's proven everywhere. There is very little argument that that is not so in the research literature. And in terms of personal experience and the experience of our members, our lives are very involved with our dogs' lives. Recently, FNDC ran a campaign called Dogs Are Whānau for trying to encourage people to register their dogs. Great campaign, absolutely 100% true. So when you say dogs in any policy, I ask that people think, replace that with the word child for some of us. Now, there's over, the research also shows that over 50% of the households in Northland own dogs. That's from Companion Animals Network research. And if you just think about your own street, how many people own dogs near you, I would say it's more than that. But it's a sizable proportion of the population who are affected by anything which talks about dogs. Dogs are particularly important for the elderly. This has been proven many, many times, and again, we put some of the information in our submission. But in terms of physical exercise, combating arthritis, getting people out walking, companionship, loneliness, the effect of patting an animal and that has a positive impact on our brains, blah, 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 blah. We all know that research. So dogs are really, really important for some people. Our native wildlife, including Kiwi, are utterly precious and need to be protected. Nobody in the watchdogs thinks otherwise to that, or nobody contributing to things that we do. And so for us, it's about saying where's the sanity line in all this? You know, it's not either or, it's not mutually exclusive. How can we make sure that responsible dog owners can have their dogs as part of their family at the same time as protecting native wildlife? Irresponsible dog owners, the people who are, and dogs who are of greatest threat to Kiwi and other wildlife are irresponsible dog owners who let their dogs wander. As a matter of course, open the door at night, let them go. Those who dump dogs, people who are time poor and don't have time to walk their dogs and think it's okay to let them go. People who live in communities who have a notion of dogs as community owned, not individually owned, which is a key issue. So that's the target population of dogs and dog owners that you need to look at when you're looking at how do we mitigate risk to kiwi in particular. Irresponsible dog owners are a threat not just to kiwi, they're a threat to stock, they're a threat to other people's dogs. You often see online people saying, oh my God, I can't walk my dog in Paihia, because the other people are letting their dogs wander and they're getting attacked as they walk. So that stops people from exercising their dogs, which is a legal responsibility that we have. Okay, so one of the things that I'd like this process to consider is restricting responsible dog owners in ways other than banning or restricting ownership, including the fencing and the stay inside at night, and your dog's got to be registered. Another one is neutering or spaying dogs, which reduces wandering of dogs. If you spay a female dog, it's going to stop other dogs coming running when she's on heat, blah, blah, blah. So there's all sorts of things you can add in that would be okay. These bans and restrictions are now widespread across Northland. We have been unable to get information from FNDC on how widespread they are. We're still trying to do that, but it is fair to say, and I imagine would be accepted by FNDC, that it is after 25 years of doing this on subdivisions, that's widespread. Now, what's happened with those regulations, as does with any regulations or laws which the public find unreasonable, is that ordinarily law-abiding citizens are ignoring those regulations. So I'll give you Russell as an example. I live 20 minutes between Russell and Rafferty, so I know Russell a little and have worked with lots of dog owners there who are concerned about the rules and regs. Very conservative people, no criminal convictions, responsible dog owners walk their dogs on a leash with, 3 mates in the morning on the beach. Generally law-abiding human beings who say, I don't care if you say I can't have a dog, this is my child. This is how I relate to a dog. It's an enormous part of my life and I'm going to ignore you. So that's happening in a lot of places. Apparently, I was told some years ago by a manager at FNDC that these subdivision consents and the dog restrictions on them are very difficult to enforce under the RMA, as opposed to under the Dog Control Act, where there's a whole lot of people who can do that at FNDC and the Animal Management Department. Under the RMA, it's more difficult. So it's unenforceable, or at the moment seems to be unenforceable, it's widespread and it's being ignored. So that makes it illogical, even if you don't consider it unethical, in our view. Okay, so that leaves me. If you look at all those points in a row, and I do wish I had a flowchart here. That's really where we're coming from on dog ownership and responsible dog ownership. Now looking at Quail Ridge, so you've all got that, the policy. So what we did on these issues is look at the district plan and say, where's the word dog come up? And one of them is at Quail Ridge. And this is almost a great example of over-regulation and lack of understanding of the importance of dogs and not looking at the other alternatives. So under Quail Ridge, you can just find R9, the wording for that. So I've got I think this is the old thing, the old one, but I've got a mechanism. So it's 18.9.6.2.13, control of domestic pets. This is QRR9, a mechanism for effectively limiting the number of domestic pets on the site and their possible movement into the adjacent scenic reserve shall be provided to the council, blah, blah, blah. So effectively limiting the number of domestic pets on the site and their movement next door. And this says that you've got to have a pet policy and that pet policy, and that Quail Ridge has to put signs when their property abuts the dock reserve saying no dogs allowed. So they're doing the dock signs there. Couple of points about that. Firstly, to say a mechanism for effectively limiting the number of domestic pets on the site, that phrase in itself says that you're actively trying to reduce the number of pets that people have. Reducing the number of pets that people have in this sort of manner isn't working at the moment, and it doesn't take into account, that could be reworded to allow for mechanisms like keeping dogs in at night, or always walking them on a lead, or always complying with dogs that are registered, neutered, blah, 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 for F&DC. The pet policy, which the section 42A relating to our submission on this rejects it, saying that it was previously approved. The pet policy was provided by the developer and approved by council through the first stage of the Quail Ridge development. Okay, so that pet policy is in front of you, and sort of in a quick summary, it's ridiculous. It's not a pet policy, it's a copy of something that they've used, that somebody's put together, and it's misspelt and it's odd. If you just read this, can I read some of this? And just think that 50% of the population thinks of a dog as a child. So not to keep any cat, dog, bird or any other animals without the prior written consent of the manager. Such consent shall be at the complete discretion of the manager and may be withdrawn at any time. Now, that's appalling. You know, I wouldn't live there. I would advertise that people should not go there with a policy like that, dog owners, because that is barbaric to think that somebody could come and say to me, oh, your dog was woofing a lot yesterday and I've got total discretion and it's gone now. And then it goes on to say that this particular dog will be kept on lead at all times, not allowed in communal areas, who cares, on lead at all times within the property, all good. That should the dog become a nuisance to other residents, then the dog will have to be removed from the Quail Ridge Country Club. And when he passes away, a non-replacement policy shall apply. So that's pretty draconian. Now you could say that's Quail Ridge's responsibility to write that, but they're writing that in order to comply with something that FNDC is recommending, and they're trying to, perhaps you're trying to reduce the number of pets on site. This is something that is a consequence of the original decision to do this on subdivisions, and it's a ridiculous policy. Quail Ridge, I thought was a retirement village, but I see it's called a country club and has about 200 units on it or something, or 230 or 270. Does that, that's what I've read.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was reading the Quail Ridge.
There is a list of people that get sewage, I believe. That's my understanding.
Right. Was it over 200?
Yeah. It's not a retirement village because I think you own the land yourself, whereas retirement village is only a license to occupy.
Right. Okay. So will the people at Quail Ridge be older generally?
I'm not sure.
Don't know. Okay. Whether they're older or younger then. 50% of those people will be people who wanted a dog, and nobody would be prepared to be subject to that. That's absurd. I don't know that I need to say any more about that other than we need to fix the district plans so that sort of stuff is not required and doesn't happen. And if it's mentioned in the 42A that it's already been approved by FNDC, well, it shouldn't have been, or in my view, in our view, it shouldn't have been, because that so does not recognise the benefits of dogs and the importance of dogs to human beings, and that a fair process needs to be applied.
I mean, I don't know whether the staff have got a copy of that. Have you got a copy of that?
I brought that today.
Have you got that?
Yeah, I got sent that from SNZ.
They can find out and report back to us whether that is the policy that was.
Well, I wrote to them when we were doing this and said, can you send me a copy of the pet policy?
You go to the council or
yes.
Quail Ridge? Oh,
the council.
So that's what they sent you?
That's what, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, okay. So the 42A says pet policy provided by the developer approved by council through the first stage, since been referred to in resource consent decisions for subsequent stages, blah, blah, blah. it should not have been, it should not continue to be, that's just not okay for people, whether they're retired or not. Okay, so that's basically where we're at on Quail Ridge and what the key points are for us. Let me just make sure I've missed any. Okay, so the Napa Innovation and Enterprise Park, this was us Googling dog and animal to find out what was going on. And so we found under NIEP P3, avoid land use for Napa. Avoid land use and development that would compromise the function of the zone, would detract from the function and well-being of Kaikoura and Napa, including but not limited to avoiding, and then point I, keeping of domestic animals, including boarding and breeding kennels. Now, or if you don't want any boarding or breeding kennels on that area, but what's the keeping of domestic, what does that mean, no keeping of domestic animals? Can someone not have their dog can a work person not take their dog to work? Are you not allowed to exercise your dogs in the area? I don't know. So I wrote to FNDC, who replied, unfortunately, I'm able to answer this question beyond the policy in the proposed district plan. That's P3, which I believe is the avoid policy you're referring to. You may wish to make a submission on this point. My submission on that point is we don't really know what that means. And if we don't know what it means, then we should know what it means. If it concerns dogs and the restriction of dogs in some way for people who are on that site, whether that be working or, I don't know if there's any residential on there, I doubt it, but we need to have the capacity to be sane in working environments that people sometimes will bring pets to work. That's happening more often nowadays, and we don't know what that is. So we're just really asking for clarification of that. So in a nutshell, that's it about those two areas with the general point. So has anyone got any questions on that or comments?
The only comment on that, we can't obviously deal with the policy that you say the council has, that's restrict subdivisions and all that sort of thing. So have you actually gone to the actual council itself and spoke about that policy and drafted something that you would like instead?
That's a good idea. We've certainly been to council on numerous occasions. We haven't drafted an alternative, but before I come to the subdivision and natural environment ones, we may do that if that's useful to council.
Yeah, but again, this is a district plan.
Yes.
Whether we can, I don't believe we can change that policy because it's the council's internal policy. But again,
Okay.
I'm just talking.
Sure.
My view is sometimes, right, we've got this is what we would like. And you might end up meeting somewhere in between with the council and yourselves on the policy.
Absolutely.
I'm well aware of the policy. I am well aware of the policy because I have done subdivision applications up here and I have all these conditions.
Yeah.
But there are some subdivisions get approved where you have the fences and have you microchip and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
But that's what I would suggest with the policy. You look at it and say, right, this is what they say, too draconian, what we like, and then you might meet in the middle.
Sure.
So see if you get a word copy of the council policy.
Yes, we've got.
Do some track changes on it.
Yeah.
And then try and speak to what you can at the council. That's all I would suggest.
I'm happy, more than happy to do that. I guess in terms of the district plan, it's ensuring that there are not, what council argues when we talk about this is it's informed by the document, which hasn't been argued. It's informed by the practice note, which we think is in line with this and DOC approves, and we're not changing that. And that hasn't, neither of those have been to the elected council for approval.
Right.
And those are enabled by the district plan on subdivision and natural environment, which say Kiwi dogs can't live together in high density Kiwi zones, so we're going to ban or restrict them all over the district.
I don't know the answer, but NIEP 3 in its item number I that you were talking about.
Yeah.
The whole idea of the Napa Innovation and Enterprise Park.
Yeah.
Enterprise and innovation.
Sure.
Not to have dog kennels there because they're
Absolutely.
allowed in the rural area.
Sure.
I'm not too sure keeping domestic animals. It's a shame that Napa people have gone out at the moment, but why that's in there, I don't know. But
nor do we, and really that's why we're raising it. We don't know why that's in there or what it means. In terms of Quail Ridge, however, that rule, that wording in that rule could alter, in order to be more in line with the research on the benefits of dogs, how dogs and wildlife can live together, and instead of limiting dogs or banning or restricting dogs and having policies that are approved that are obviously pretty draconian, there's a better way to do that in our view, and that's a district plan.
Well, we could take that out, but then Quail Ridge can still do what they want.
They can.
But I wouldn't say, you know, sure.
Clarity.
Yeah.
Can, because that was original subdivision consent. The process of taking that out.
Well, I'm just saying if we took it
But I
out,
don't think,
Quail Ridge is still bound in dogs.
yeah, because they're in private enterprise, but the subdivision consent, do we, sorry, this is a really dumb question.
No, it's a good question, and I'd like to know too.
The district plan can't just come over the top of an existing subdivision consent. It can.
Yes, it can.
Okay, I learned something today. Oh, you didn't like that, did you?
So the DP can override the subdivision.
Well, I think when that plan change was done, the Department of Conservation, I mean, the Bay of Island watchdogs might have been in existence in no time.
Sorry,
You might not have been in existence then when that plan change was done for Quail Ridge, but I would imagine it was done as a submission when, from DOC regarding their reserve next door. That's probably why that's in there.
Oh, there's no question that DOC has a very strong influence in every subdivision consent, whether it's with the generalities with this,
Okay.
or, you know, they get sent, the consents for, they get sent consents to make a comment on them. So they will always strongly, oppose dog ownership wherever they can. And in part, and I understand it in part, because they feel that the Dog Control Act and Animal Management aren't patrolling enough to stop wandering dogs, which is the key issue. But what's happening is over-regulation of the responsible dog owners and under-management of the irresponsible dog owners. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions for Samantha. Thank you. And also, I just wanted, if it's suggest some clarification from the staff about that last statement about the resource consent versus the new district plan or the plan. Can we see staff just to make comment on that?
Yeah, so obviously subdivision consents are slightly unusual in that once they are exercised, they sort of cease to exist to a certain degree, but where we've got a requirement based on existing approval or an existing approval, say for the land use, I suspect the land use and subdivision.
It was a private land change, wasn't it?
It was I'm working off memory, we will need to go away and confirm. My understanding is there was a parallel process of land change and a resource consent applied for. That's why when you read it, it's a little bit reflective at times of resource consent condition wording. That's my understanding, but we will need to clarify that later on. In terms of what we were just discussing, timing obviously is important to understand when a district plan would become an override development. If we're talking about cats and dogs, for example, if a subdivision has been given effect to and has restrictions on the title, those restrictions sit there regardless of what a district plan does in the future. They register as a title. If, for example, down the track, the district plan was altered and it actually came out with a position of firm set of rules regarding the management of cats and dogs, for example, then that's moving forward as to how we would look at things. And there would be grounds here, for example, for some conflict, your consent notice should come back, for that consent notice to be removed and modified, for example, if it was more enabling. Sorry, probably going to be a little bit of over detail there, but it's very, as James says, it's not a simple answer.
So in that sense, in that sense, the consent overrides the district plan, or it's, future consents will change, but if you change the district plan, these will still stay unless challenged by an individual.
If you change the district plan and make it allowable, then possibly those people could apply
Right.
for a variation possibly.
Yes.
But it all depends what's on the title, of course, because.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think you've raised one of the points about a change of cancellation of existing consent notices registered against the title. So that's one aspect that has been pointed out, may already exist, and so it will have to be changed in the future. Through this plan change process, this consolidated review of our plan, I would very much like to see what you're recommending for your wording. I see that your submission is heavily focused just on dogs, which is obviously relevant. The protection of Indigenous flora and fauna is a matter of national significance, and I think if you're going to concentrate on dogs, I think people will be asking, well, what about the cats? Cats, dog, and mustelids are usually the three groupings. So I think as well that would be a question that will come up in any wording.
Sure.
As you know, the council doesn't have a bylaw about cats.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the mechanism under legislation about cats.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to highlight that, and if you do have that wording, if you could provide that
Sure.
to us as well. Because as you highlight,
You mean wording for QR9, or do you mean
For the new policy, like the policy that you referred to,
the practice note?
yeah, the practice note, that's what I think what you referred to.
yeah, but also I think
The district plan?
internally, a practice note is not a direction about the policy, and yes, the policy or objective gives direction to anyone on board or consent or subdivision or land use. And that's the direction to start. That's the direction to any planner. So,
Yeah.
so yes,
Sure.
if your submission is on that basis, then you can submit about the objective or policy and any such wording. Practice notes are non-statutory, so if you want it to be statutory direction, you'll note that Department of Conservation over the last plan in 2007 appealed many times, right through to the end, right through to Environment Court, which is probably why there might be moving interest note. So that gives some background about the context about why those practice notes are one of those methodologies. This is a new process, this is a new plan, and you've taken the right steps to make submissions to reflect your concerns, but if you can please address cats, mustelids as well as dogs, that might be helpful.
Cool. We've sort of avoided cats a bit in the dog group because we try not to split between cats and dogs because that often happens. And we've avoided focusing on cat stuff because there's only so much research we can do. But I have actually looked into cats, being a bit of a cat fanatic myself, and mitigating measures for cats in terms of catios, desexing, what the research shows actually reduces predation in cats, blah, blah, blah. So happy to have a look at that and talk to some of the cat rescuers and so on and get you some wording. You mean for the DP as well as for the practice note?
Yeah, or if your suggestion is ban the cats and the mustelids, but here are some, but keep the dogs and here are the conditions. I'm not sure what your position is, but when we that might.
Yeah.
So, some of the clauses you're seeking in place of bans for dogs was fencing, dust to door restrictions, neutering. Is there one?
Sorry, Kelly, say that again. I'm deaf in one ear.
Okay, I'll talk louder.
Sorry.
Some of the clauses you're seeking in place of ban at Quail Ridge was fencing, dust to door restriction, neutering. Was there a fourth one?
Microchipping, you mentioned registering.
Oh,
You can make an
stuff like
exclusion
that.
clause for if people have, for example, if people have convictions for animal abuse, you can have a clause for that.
Yes.
There's about 10 things you can do other than ban or restrict the number of dogs that would work there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for a great submission.
Oh, that's right, thank you. That's really interesting. Cool. Come back on the cats. Sorry, can I just,
Don't be on masculines.
on the way here, I don't know, does anyone have fixed goats?
You're not allowed anymore. You're not allowed. I remember in Stillwater, probably in the mid-80s, they had a fish farm, ferret farm,
Wow.
mid-80s.
Counts.
They had farms, big sheds, yeah, fish farms. I'll be absolutely bonkers. Anyway.
The research on the threat to kiwi from cats is that it's, stuff all, that's terrible to say the research that, but it is, there's, very low threat. Very few examples of cats being a danger to kiwi. It's dogs that are the key issue for kiwi. Cats do other bad things like eat lizards. But, yeah, we can give it a crack.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Now we have Dr. Melanie Miller, virtually.
She is online. Melanie, can you hear us? Oh, that's
Raina.
You can hear us okay?
I can hear you. My camera doesn't seem to have clicked in yet, but I hope you can hear me.
Yeah,
Yes, we can.
they're coming through now.
Good. Okay, I'll just share my screen. I can't get my camera fixed.
Oh, no, sorry, we can't see you. Your camera has come off, but
There's something in the way.
Oh, damn. Can you see my screen? Oh, so sorry. I'll just go to the settings.
oh. Yeah, how about in the top of your laptop? Is there a little?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just can't quite get this working. Hang on. Camera. Access. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to get the setting. It just won't.
We do have your presentation in front of us.
You do. If you're happy just to, let's just go through the presentation if that's okay. I'm so sorry. My camera is just in a weird state at the moment. So basically, good morning. I'm presenting on behalf of three groups, three submitters, Vision Kerry Kerry, Carbon Neutral Trust and Kapira Conservation Trust. And in the audience with you today, present in the meeting, we have a representative of Vision Kerry Kerry and Carbon Neutral Trust, Rolf Muller-Glod and Inga Bremer. Our statements in hearing one provided reasons why it's important to put a climate lens on all relevant parts of the PDP. So I'd like to mention first our submissions on energy efficiency and renewable energy generation, the parts that are relevant to special purpose zones. We seek a requirement to consider energy efficient design and relevant types of renewable energy technologies in new developments. And this could possibly be in the form of a requirement that development proposals should demonstrate that they've considered energy efficient design and relevant types of renewable energy technologies, just as they have to do for things like soil stability for buildings or stormwater management. We also note that the PDP policy MUZP6 in the mixed use zone, it actually states to promote energy efficient design and the use of renewable electricity generation in the construction of mixed use development. And we think that a similar policy could be added in special zones, such as promote energy efficient design and the use of renewable electricity generation in construction of, name of the zone, development. We made a number of submissions relating to energy efficiency and renewable energy overall, and they're stated here just as background evidence of our submissions. And again, summarized in the blue box, we recognise that the PDP chapter on renewable electricity generation does set rules for developers and others who wish to install that technology. However, it's really only for those who wish to install it. And it's desirable to also include provisions in the zone chapters to ensure that energy efficiency and renewable energy will be considered in all new developments and not just buried in a chapter that many people may not consider otherwise. We did in our submission state a number of reasons and justifications for these additional requirements relating to energy efficiency and renewable development. And these are stated in the paper. There's RMA section 7, for example, which specifically refers to the efficiency of the end use of energy and the benefits to be derived from the use and development of renewable energy. And then the Regional Policy Statement Development Guidelines, Appendix 2, clearly state that new subdivision use and development should adopt, where appropriate, sustainable design technologies, which include energy efficient and renewable energy technologies. And as mentioned in our submissions in hearing 1, we also gave a number of reasons why it's very important to consider and incorporate climate change measures that address climate change issues in all relevant parts of the PDP. You recall that RMA section 74 actually requires councils, when preparing a district plan, to have regard to the National Emissions Reduction Plan, and that identifies a range of actions. Councils aren't obliged to do these things, but it's in the interests of everybody in our district and our society to take on board these actions wherever possible, such as the first one, replacing non-renewable resources with renewables everywhere possible. And we can be doing a lot more to do these things. I should point out that the district plan is going to cover new consents in the coming 10 years and more, and the buildings and development created by those consents are going to last hopefully at least 50 years or more, and our society can't afford to continue with business as usual and ignore the climate imperatives. The NPS for renewable electricity generation, Policy F, also has a key point. And as mentioned, the policy in the mixed use zone P6 also promotes energy efficient design and the use of renewable energy electricity generation. So we move on now to the next topic, impermeable surface coverage. Our submissions on this topic relevant to special purpose zones, for this we seek to minimize impermeable surface area by requiring permeable materials wherever feasible. This would be for things like driveways and pathways. These days, there are a range of alternatives and substitutes to fully impermeable coverings. Some are, some are highly permeable, some are less permeable, but all of them are better than 100% impermeable surface. We also support the submissions by Papuki Totara Lodge submission 481, seeking improved provisions on stormwater management. And in the blue box, we've also summarised our overall submissions relevant to the PDP, all relevant parts of the PDP relating to permeable materials and impermeable coverage. So I won't go through those in detail. Our submissions provided justifications for changes. We noticed, for example, we noted that there is a real need for measures in the PDP to prevent problems associated with more extreme rainfall events in the future. Not only is there a problem with flood risk, but also water quality. So if we look at flood risk, if the majority of land in the residential and urban areas becomes covered by impermeable surfaces, it would eliminate much of the existing soak-away areas for stormwater and increase the risk of flooding in such areas during high rainfall events. And when it comes to water quality, ever larger impermeable coverage will increase urban runoff to waterways during heavy rain events. And this has adverse effects on water quality due to the sediment and pollutants in the runoff. So we noted other reasons why the PDP should address the fact that intensification can result in much larger impermeable surfaces. We acknowledge the need for intensification of development in the urban areas, but we also at the same time need to address the problem of larger and larger impermeable coverage. So we concluded that the PDP should require best practice and measures for all stormwater relating to engineering, infrastructure and development to prevent the problems associated with more extreme events and intensification in future. We also point out that flooding is New Zealand's most frequent natural hazard, and the economic cost of flood damage is expected to continue rising substantially due to climate change and urban expansion. And according to the Insurance Council of New Zealand, flooding exacerbated by climate change last year will cost about 3.5 billion in Aotearoa. There have been a number of studies around the world, and a number of cities and towns are moving towards, moving away from impermeable coverage where possible. For example, there's a US study that compared the increases in the total impermeable area, stormwater runoff and pollutants in a conventional development versus a development that uses low impact techniques. In the conventional subdivision design, they observed a large increase in the runoff volume as the total impervious area increased through the development of that subdivision and the associated problems with runoff and so on. In the low impact subdivision design, it was a direct comparison. In contrast, they found that the annual stormwater runoff volume didn't change as the impervious coverage increased to a limited extent. So there are ways, there are future ways in which we can manage these things better than we're doing, and we certainly will need to do that in the future. And certainly the territorial authorities have a role in this. There was a report for Auckland Council a few years back which examined the slow implementation of low impact design in the Auckland region. And they identified three main reasons for the slowness, one of which included the lack of support and promotion by a number of territorial authorities. And finally, I'd just like to point out a report by the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. They had a rather neat diagram looking at the percentage of impermeable surface and the related percentage runoff in different situations. So there are 4 examples here, but if I just highlight the 2 on the right-hand side, if you have about 10 to 20% impermeable coverage, that would lead to about 20% runoff, typically. If you have 75 and more percent impermeable coverage, that leads to at least 50% runoff. And you can see, therefore, why it's linked with higher degree of flooding, particularly as climate change progresses. I would just like to add a brief comment on one other matter mentioned by the previous speaker from Bay of Islands Watchdogs. And we recognise entirely that their members are responsible dog owners. They take care of their dog's animal welfare, and they don't let them roam and keep them well away from vulnerable indigenous species. However, as also noted by that speaker, there are many dog owners who are not so responsible. And in addition, when it comes to Quail Ridge, I think it's quite important to look at the map of that area, because about 60% roughly of the boundary around Quail Ridge is dock land and conservation zone.
Ms. Miller,
Native bush.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello, yes?
I'm the chair. My name is Bill Smith. I'm the chair. Did you submit on Quail Ridge and the dog issues?
We submitted on dog issues in general all our submissions said that our comments were relevant to all relevant parts of the PDP.
We'll just clarify that, but I just want to ask you first. So you think your submission covered your ability to comment on Quail Ridge and the dog issue?
Yes, our submissions certainly entitle us to comment on dog issues in all relevant parts of the PDP, and we consider that the Quail Ridge zone is part of the PDP.
Okay, that's all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. We wanted to point out that there is a range of retirement developments in the Kerry area. In addition to Quail Ridge, there are probably about 5 others. So there are other retirement options for people who want to keep dogs. I'm sorry, I think I didn't quite finish the point about the dock land around the Quail Ridge boundary. So about 60% of Quail Ridge boundary is dock land, that's conservation zone, native bush, which DOC states on its website is a Kiwi area, and they don't allow dogs there. And so we feel that there is some justification, given the RMA Section 6 matters about protection of significant habitat of indigenous fauna. We feel there is justification for some types of control on dogs in that area. We note that there are other retirement options for people who want to keep dogs. There are other retirement developments that are not in Kiwi areas, and presumably dogs would therefore not be an issue there. So if people want to keep a dog, they don't need to go to one that restricts dogs in Kiwi areas. I would also mention that although about 50% of the people have dogs, there are also very many people who don't own dogs, and the rules should provide for their needs as well and their wishes. There are some people who actually prefer the option of a neighborhood that doesn't have dogs barking, doesn't have roaming dogs, or a place where they can walk around without getting dog excrement on their shoes. And the number of developments with restrictions on dogs is actually limited to the Kiwi areas, which are significant habitats of indigenous fauna. So I just leave my comments there, and thank you very much indeed for listening to comments today.
Just hold on a moment in case there's any questions, please.
Reading my mind. Yeah, I think that, so my question was about the impermeable surface coverage. You spoke about the low impact designs and also that with natural ground cover through to density. We're not doing the engineering standards in this hearing, as will provisions for density. And I think what you're referring to, and yes, the special purpose zones do requested and density requirements, but then I see your submission here specifically around the thermal surface coverage and allowing for non-hard engineering solutions, and I can think of some at the top of my head. Also, that may come up in the definitions chapter and the definition of a thermal surface to allow more options. So a lot of these things can be addressed in later hearings, but particularly to these special zones that have been raised today. I'm not sure exactly the policy specifically that would be changed to address these, other than under the general provisions, under the definitions and the engineering standards at a later time. Did you have any comment on that?
Well, I'm not a planner, it's obvious, we're not experts, but we can see the need to minimise impermeable surface area by requiring permeable materials wherever feasible. And in principle, there should be some way to incorporate that into relevant parts of the PDP. It's a sensible provision. That's the way the rest of the world is moving. And as mentioned, we are not planners and cannot put forward a specific part or place where this could be inserted, but we think it's an important point to be incorporated in an appropriate manner.
Supporting this submission.
She's supporting this. Kia ora, Melanie. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this, but you said you supported the Whakitōtara Lodge submission?
Yes.
In regard.
Sorry, I can't hear the question. The sound is really bad. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, if you just bear with me, I'm trying to get my words together. In the Whakitōtara Lodge submission, they made comment on stormwater discharge, and they were talking about changing some of the wording for the disposal effluent and stormwater. Change the wording from what was it, adjoining to adjacent water bodies. Do you have any comment on that?
I'm only aware. I'm aware of the section 42 report on airport special zone, paragraph 60, where it refers to Whakitōtara Lodge seeking to ensure that the PDP adequately controls effects from stormwater discharge, particularly between sites and adjacent sites. And they refer to stormwater management being added to the relevant impermeable surface rule in all zones. And in fact, Puketoto Lodge's original submission contains quite a lot more detail than the 3 points pulled out and repeated in the section 42 report.
Yeah, thank you for that, Melanie. I was looking at the Orongo Bay section 2. Just wanting to get your view on the term, oh my gosh, what is the word? Adjoining being replaced by adjacent. But if your submission, you don't have to comment, you don't have an opinion on it. Thank you.
Yes, I don't have an opinion on that. Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, may I just draw your attention to the very first sentence of Dr. Miller's paper, which says, our statement during hearing 1 provided reasons why it is important to put climate lens on all relevant parts of the PDP.
Yep.
Since you didn't have the privilege of being at the hearing 1, we explained how important it is to have this climate lens on every part, and that includes obviously also special zones.
Okay.
So I'd just like to draw your attention to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. If there's nothing else, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
We'll take an adjournment now till 11 o'clock. Okay?
Yep, perfect.
Yes, we'll take an adjournment now till 11 o'clock.
Okay, I'm turning off the camera and you